Community Development Block Grant Program. And Ed Bartholomew, there is some documentation. Ed Bartholomew will come up and explain it.
Good evening. As previously discussed a few weeks ago, the Housing Urban Development sent out a notice and a couple of Zoom conferences relative to the ability of entitlement communities, which Glens Falls has been since 1974, similar to Saratoga, Albany, Schenectady, Troy, the city of Hudson, and then other larger cities in the community. And they have allocated funds to the city of Glens Falls, essentially in response to COVID-19. And as a result of that, they wanted us to see if there was other changes or adoptions that wanted to be made at this particular time. The only change that has been made is we have incorporated in the existing 2019 a small dollar figure to allow the continuation of the Village Green educational children's program that will commence instead of in the, basically it was going to start before school commenced or completed, but now it's going to be deemed later in the summer once we're able to convene on the outside. That required an amendment and a change in the requirement. So that's basically the only change within the current allocation of the 2019 funds. As far as it relates to the COVID-19 funds, what was looked at was those organizations that have continued to provide additional services or additional monies during the course of doing this. One of the new organizations that has not received any money in the past from the city of Glens Falls has been the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army under Captain Leo has taken a much more aggressive, at the same time a much more outreach to other organizations in the community, not-for-profits, other churches, as well as to the city of Glens Falls. And after discussions from Mayor Hall and a mild suggestion, monies was added to the Salvation Army, and the other day the mayor and I had a long talk to outline the requirements for that. Captain Leo, with the exception of coming from Boston and being a New England sports team, wonderful person. He came and his first couple of assignments were in the Brockton, Cambridge area, and he moved on into Connecticut. He is very familiar with federal programs, so the whole issue of reimbursement and how it happens, also the requirements that you have to have that during the course of your service, you're not supposed to be involved, you can't get involved in religious conversion of any sort, and things like that, which are important, as well as being able to sign a declaration that there will be no discrimination in the hiring practices and so forth. So from that particular point of view, he's well versed on it, and discussed with him that principally the effort would be is to utilize the $25,000 for funds going forward for essentially for purposes within the city of Glens Falls. They have done a great job for the Stitchman and Cronin High Rise is other areas. And again, that's the purpose of really to outreach the communities. Also, Family Services under Kim Sobchak has really gone out of her way to open the hours of her operation and so forth. And they do some food, but they do also clothing, and they also do a lot of other things that are not necessarily noticed by the community at large, but it's certainly noticed by those individuals that come in and ask for services. So that's another organization that we've received money for. This would be in addition to the money outlined here. The senior citizens are doing an outreach to a lot of their members and calling them on a regular basis in seeing if they are in particular need in providing services in the area. Also, the youth center is planning to do some activities once they're permitted to reopen in regards to that as well. And then another important area was this, is that our economic development within the city of Glens Falls and the number of small businesses that we have. And with small businesses, there has been a disproportionate amount of small businesses that have closed, unsure if they're going to reopen or not. And for most small businesses, the average, and this is an average, it may not be akin to every downtown business, the average cash reserve that a small business has is about 3 months. Some may have a little bit more. So they're really tight. And unfortunately, as much as there has been a great resurgence up and through February, March, and people stocked for 1Ks and so forth programs, quite honestly, that economic surge has not hit the small businesses in our region. Restaurants have done better, but costs have also gone up in regards to this now. So as a result of that, there really was a need to look at the potential for the city with funding here to provide a forgivable loan. So that, in other words, it can't be a startup business, but they were in operation last fall, and they remain in business 1 year after the forgivable loan is granted to them. So essentially, with the approvals and HUD and so forth, probably would be in mid-June that the first monies would be available. It would be 1 year forward. If they remain in business, essentially doing their operation with the same amount of employees, give or take, circumstances that can justify, the loan of up to $7,500 would be totally forgiven in regards to that. So there's not any payment, and also beyond that, there would be a 3-month deferral of that loan if for some reason they were unable to comply with that. So that gives the small business an opportunity, because the loans have been helpful to a certain point, but quite honestly, these small businesses really need a grant, because otherwise they're just loaning more money and getting more and more in debt with our small businesses. And we recognize that when we walk up Glen Street, Ridge Street, but also this is for any small business, 20 or under, in the city of Glens Falls. There is a limitation on some, such as in the insurance business, such as in the broker's business, in the professional field for lawyers. Mr. Bill would not be eligible for forgiveness loan. Not that Ron needs to have a loan of any sort whatsoever. But, so there is some of the ones, and that we received the guidance from HUD, is to really, our goal is to go out there for the small businesses that basically, and again, they can't have revenues of over $2.5 million. Now, small business would love to have $2.4 million, right? If they could. And again, because the retail people, that ownership, are hiring people that again are not making a tremendous amount of wages. So there is a direct benefit to the owner, but also it's passing on to their employees as well, is also to the suppliers and the inventory in this area. And that's beginning to hit in some of the smaller businesses, as well as your price increasing. We have an expert with Scott here to tell us about the increases in particularly in the meat areas. But I think that this adds to the other programs that some have gone for with PPP and so forth. So if an individual has had a PPP, it really will depend on their bookkeeping to see if it's really necessary for them to have, because we want to stretch these monies out to as many different individuals as we can within the city. So this, obviously, downtown is a major focus, but there are small businesses anywhere you go to the east end, up to the 5th Ward, up in that particular area. There's a number of businesses that would go for. This will combine with the governor announced today, moving forward, go forward program, which is a program, and so what we're going to be doing is on the city's website, listing the city's program, the existing SBA programs, and also the guidance policy for this New York loan program, which will also help, again, kind of in a forgiveness loan program for certain businesses, as well as for landlords, small landlords. I think at 20 or 25 units. I might be a little bit wrong on the number of units with that. It may be 50. No, I think it's 25 units. I keep changing these numbers around. But again, that's for the small landlord. I know that program was raised by some folks in the city before on that program going forward. So what we're trying to do in conjunction with the governor and what a lot of other economic development institutes are talking about is where and how is COVID-19 affecting communities. And they break it kind of down into areas that are most hard hit is your retail areas. We don't need a $100,000 study to tell us, but other certain areas are doing better than others. The technology areas, which we're very fortunate to kind of be on the outer border, if you will, rim of technology, seems to be stabilizing more quicker than other areas that don't have technology. In areas that are pure tourism, and you can know in your mind whether it's Las Vegas, whether it's down in the Southern California area, whether it's in Florida and other areas where your tourism and business is maybe 45–50%. Those areas are definitely going to suffer some more. The other interesting thing that has come out, as far as communities, is how are they able to survive? Communities that are dependent on sales tax, total sales tax, the majority of the revenues are sales tax or occupancy tax, they're going to have a more immediate, difficult time immediately coming up right now. Those communities that have a larger percentage of property tax revenues, there's a little bit more stability than there is if you're heavily dependent. In Glens Falls, the majority of your revenues are coming from property tax. You haven't had an increase from the state and municipal aid in years, 12 years. But your sales tax is going to be down, and some of your occupancy tax that you do get in terms of some effort from the county probably will be down as well. So there's some stabilization there. Now, if this continues very long, we're again going to go see what we did with the mortgage foreclosures, and that could come back if people aren't working, if people have other debt, then they're not going to pay their mortgage, and therefore there's foreclosures that come in. So right now, on an immediate view, things don't look as negative as you might think for the city. I'm not doing the budget, the mayor is, but I think that's a positive sign in the economic institutes that I spent some time this weekend in talking to some people in that regards, and I know that your larger percentage is property tax. And so the other thing that's helpful in this time and other times is we have a great diversity in our county. From tourism is a component of about 15–20%. We have a heavier portion that is attributable to manufacturing in our area, and we recognize that when you compare the jobs in the manufacturing to the tourism, there's a significant difference, as well as a more indirect impact as well. But that tourism helps our county as well, and it's dividing the north and the center and the south on that. So that collectively, we're fortunate to have that kind of a breakup, as well as our medical care facilities from the hospital, Hudson Headwater, and our 3 medical device firms in town, Finch Paper. You have Flowmatic on the island and so forth. So when you start looking at some of our major manufacturing areas, Barton Mines up in North Creek, we're very blessed to have that. And then the bulk of the rest, though, is our small businesses. And so what our program is trying to do, my long-winded answer, is to help those small businesses that are in need of immediate need and not have to worry that they've got to pay this loan back as long as they stay in business.
Good job. I just have a question, Ed.
Yeah.
You said for the, is this loan going to people who didn't get the PPP?
Yes,
Is that okay? All right.
Principally, that's our goal
That's our
first,
goal.
to do that, and then we will see what happens. But we want to give those an opportunity, whether they couldn't qualify for that, whether they missed the deadline, whether they didn't have a banking relationship. I have to say, the second round of our PPP by SBA, all of our local banks, and one of the other things that the Economic Institute put out is that for the first round and second round, our local community-based banks, which we have with Glens Falls National, the Berkshire Bank, Adirondack Trust, NBT, really shine in these moments here in our region. We really have to say that they went through priority with their own customers first, but they got into a tremendous amount of individuals that did not have, because the federal credit unions did not participate in these rounds of funds to do that. So it's a combination of quickly trying to help not-for-profits that have expended over their budget. They're out of the budget. Captain Leo said he's basically spent all of his budget on things, so try to be helpful, as well as the other not-for-profits, so that they don't get too far out of alignment with their budget.
Ed, if they get a loan and they stay in business, are you going to be checking what they spent it on the same way?
Yes, they have the same way that we do with community development and other not-for-profits. Currently, right now, for not-for-profits, you allocate the money, but the money is a reimbursement after they submit everything in. We will give them the money up front, but they will be required, we'll sit down with them, and generally, we'd like to see them. I'm not going to have a bureaucratic every quarter, but perhaps half a year, and then see if there's a problem. We would do that on a very simple form. They just submit their bills of what they had to do with it, and we work that out very well. And Jackie will be helping with the processing of that, so that we can move that along pretty well. All the not-for-profits are great. Usually we get all of them in within 2 or 3 days of when they have to report to us. They've done very well. Family Services is right there. The Y is, they're all very good in getting their money as well, including Community Action Agency. We have some very good, hardworking groups in our city. We're very fortunate to have that. That obviously extend out beyond the city. They're based in Glens Falls.
Okay, great. So just to add to the, about the Salvation Army, they've been going to the high-rises and feeding the people in the high-rises quite a bit. So they had called and asked if there was going to be any money in the CBDG money, and we said we would sure try. So we met, as Ed said, with Captain Leo over the phone, and I think it's going to be a good thing. So as Ed said, it's the first time we've done that. They've been really good in the community. They've helped with food drives in Washington County and also in Warren County, not with the mall. So this is good. So
That's an important part of our community that has been missing as far, to be honest with you, as far as our community participation, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's child care or food drive. So I think that Dan and the captain obviously have established an excellent relationship that I think that can be very helpful to Glens Falls and the surrounding area.
okay, thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, so it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. You do have Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have 2 minutes before Robin calls in. So we'll go to committee reports. Mr. Underberg, you
I have none.
Mr. Clark?
I have none.
Mr. Collins?
I have none.
I have none.
Ms. Reed?
I have none.
Okay.
So for the Building and Codes Committee, one of the things we had been working on is vacant property registration. And we hadn't been able to meet, but Chris, our department head for code enforcement, has been continuing to work on a draft. So we have that draft kind of under review by our deputy city attorney who works on zoning and planning. And once we get that back, we will schedule a committee meeting to review it. And the purpose of that is really to be able to have an accountable person for each of these vacant properties, and also to incentivize people to not keep them vacant. So it's still a work in progress, but we are moving that forward.
Great. Along those lines, just so that I want everybody, each of the council people in your words, there's been a lot of upgrades to some of these zombie homes, and a lot of these have turned over through the banks. So if you know or you see something in your neighborhood, please take a picture on your phone or whatever, so we can start compiling, because we always get criticized that, we're not doing anything, but in reality we are. So I would like to be able to get that out there and use that a little bit of as a PR to say that, you know, we've changed this many houses, you know, we've upgraded. There's one on my street which was, was really bad.
Yep.
8 years I've been working
That's
on
one of the first ones, isn't it?
it. All right. So,
Mayor, I will have J.D., I want you to is
Yeah.
part of this,
be great.
to do that, so if you could just email me, I can send it all over to J.D. and have him go out there and do.
Hello.
Hi, it's Robin.
Hi, Robin. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Did you wanted to talk to the council tonight?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm getting the delay here. I'm watching it. This guy's still talking. So, we had a meeting today about Take-A-Bite. And, it sounds like the restaurants would rather not jump into it July 1st, like planned. Maybe try to wait, maybe do August, September. There's not a lot of, want to do it in the park like you would do for Jason in North Country. People really want to stay in front of the brick and mortar because of DOH regulations. It's a lot easier for those brick and mortar to stay there. And so there was talk about if it was possible for the city to close off a street each week for it, you know, close off Glen one week, close off Ridge next week, and back and forth. We think that we could work up a good social distancing plan for it. But then after that meeting later in the day, I got an email, I guess, from Americade, which is now the last weekend of July, might be interested in doing something with Glens Falls and or Take-A-Bite, and or Restaurant Week. So, I really want to, you know, work with the city and try to figure out how we best move forward. But I think we would all agree that if we don't do anything weeks early in July, it's probably best.
Yeah, so, we are still, obviously, we're looking for guidance. I talked to the county today, and they don't think that the restaurants are gonna be able to phase in until the third phase, which would probably be, the first part of July. So I am in favor, and I'll let the council chime in, to push and take it right back to, August. We have not heard from Americade, so, we're not quite sure where that's coming from, but they have not talked to the city, or if they have, I haven't heard about it. But I'm kind of excited that you want to push it back. I think August and September would be great. The city will work with you any way that we can. We do have some problems with, you know, tables in the streets and so on. So that's something that we'll work on, and we'll try to get the guidance from the state and the guidance from the county to try to accommodate the restaurants and the collaborative to, you know, the city wants to work with you. We want the vibrant part of our summer back, you know. It's, we really, we're going in a strong direction, and now all of a sudden we've had to, you know, close up a little bit, and we want to get it back to where we were. So, anybody from the council want to comment on that?
I think that's fine. I mean, extra month, I think August is, I was always wondering why we ended so early anyways with it. I mean, I think August is a great month to have.
I agree.
No problems with that.
So the consensus I'm getting is that we're all on board. You know, we'll communicate. I know that you talk with Amy Collins frequently, you know, and she talks with me. So just keep us abreast of what's going on. And as we say, the city will work with you any way that we can.
Okay, thank you so much, you guys. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Robin.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Now we'll go to our resolutions. Voice vote. Anyone want to pull that? Okay. Number one is resolution approving the minutes of the May 12th, 2020 meeting of the Glens Falls Common Council. And number two, I'm not going to pull it, but I want to talk about it afterwards. Number two is a resolution expressing support and appreciation for Glens Falls Hospital, its physicians, nurses, and staff, and endorsing the hospital's efforts to obtain federal and state reimbursement to offset the cost that is borne in connection with the COVID-19 pandemic, and imploring the city, state, and federal representatives to use their best efforts to secure federal and state funding, and further resolving the copies of this resolution be sent to Governor Cuomo, Representative Stefanik, Senator Schumer, and Gillibrand, and the Administration Board of Governors of Glens Falls Hospital.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, under roll call vote, is there anything that you would like to pull for discussion? Number 3 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the city-owned property vacant land at 27 Baldwin Avenue, tax map number 302-12.12-16-5 with Tina Sackman at a contract sum of $5,500 pursuant to Glens Falls City Code, Chapter 38. 4 is a resolution approving encroachment permit renewal for 42 Greens Holding 206 Glen Street for placement of a sandwich board in front of the business for the period of June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021, with the understanding that the encroachment permit must be renewed annually. 5 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit renewal for Fowler Building Associates, LLC, 190 Glen Street to place a high-quality string of LED lights between 184 Glen Street and 190 Glen Street buildings, Exchange Street Plaza, at a height of about 16 feet above grade from June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021, with the understanding that encroachment permits must be renewed annually. 6 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit as approved by Mayor Hall on May 1st, 2020, subject to retroactive common council approval for Associates of Glens Falls, 220 Glen Street to excavate the alley between 220 Glen and 208 Glen to install a new stormwater drain line to existing storm sewer manhole for the period of May 4th, 2020 to May 6th, 2020. 7 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit approved by Mayor Hall on May 8th, 2020, subject to retroactive common council approval for Associates of Glens Falls, 220 Glen Street to install scaffolding along the alley between 28 and 208 Glen Street from Glen Street to the Elm Street lot to allow window installation in the north wall of 220 Glen Street from May 11th to June 30th, 2020. 8 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit for renewal for Queensbury Hotel, 88 Ridge Street, for placement of a sandwich board on Ridge Street on the sidewalk in front of the hotel for the period from June 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2021, with the understanding that the encroachment permit must be renewed annually. 9 is a resolution approving an encroachment permit as approved by Mayor Hall on May 22nd, 2020, subject to retroactive common council approval to Elizabeth Miller, 1525 Park Street, to Park Equipment Industry to remove sidewalk vaults and fill in vaults and for new sidewalks from June 1st to July 31st, 2020. 10 is a resolution determining that Glens Falls Common Council will be lead agency for the Market Center and related projects situated in the South Street DRA area, and further resolving that the project constitutes an unlisted action as the term is defined in Section 6 NYCRR 1617.2 AL, and then the mayor shall cause involved agencies and any other interested agencies to be notified of this resolution. 11 is a resolution approving a substantial amendment of the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Program Annual Action Plan to provide a proposed budget for use of new CDBG-CV funding awarded to the City of Glens Falls under the Federal CARES Act, Public Law 116-136 for COVID-19 response and relief. Number 12 is a resolution authorizing the Glens Falls Local Development Corporation to undertake the establishment and administration and oversight of the CDBG COVID-funded Small Business Recovery Fund with the City of Glens Falls. 13 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a DRI contract with Creighton Manning Engineers for work associated with the Glens Falls DRI project, streetscape infrastructure, park, Elms Exchange, and school streets in downtown Green Space Park, School Street, including compliance with NWBE goals, 20% MBE and 10% WBE, and reported at a cost not to exceed $195,535. 14 is a resolution approving the City of Glens Falls Community Development annual payments of $1,223.42. And 15 is a resolution approving the warrant.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Campanell?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Enziri?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Okay. Old business.
I have none.
Mr. Clark.
I don't know if this qualifies as old business or new, but I just want to thank you, Mayor, for moving forward with open pickup. I know there's a lot of appreciative residents around the city that are happy that we're doing that, at least going around one time and one time only. So, thank you.
So I thought it worked out really good when we ended up not being able to pick up when people, were community, sensed that we needed to do something and they bagged their leaves, which I thought was great and made it a lot simpler for us. So that was a good thing. Mr. Collins?
I failed to mention under committee reports that the Sustainability Committee has made a little bit of progress towards the $2 million green smart cities grant initiative. We've been in contact with Syracuse University, and they are in agreement with working with us to develop a working basically an idea of urban farming using LED streetlights in a building downtown in Glens Falls to see if proof of concept can work. We've got also on that committee, we have Diana's cousin who has experience of running a business with LED urban farming project, and also Jim Siplon and not the Just Water group, but the people that used to make up Just Water. They're now a not-for-profit business called 501c3. So they're very interested in supporting the idea. And so everybody likes the idea. We're working on getting a rough estimate of what it would cost to try something like this. How much equipment we would need and what the cost would be if you were going to do something like this. And then we'll be meeting probably this coming week with Syracuse University, but they have agreed that they love the idea and they're willing to work with us on it. And all this, we hope to have something by the time the council meets in 2 weeks, a little bit of a white paper that would be the application for the grant, and so see if it's a possibility. So there is some great progress on that. I wanted to make sure I let everybody know. I'd also like to ask the council members to look in your emails for an email from Jeff Flagg, our consultant for the Sustainability Committee. He's asking you to indicate when next week, what evening next week you might be available to do a virtual meeting with NIPA. NIPA? Thank you. Get my acronyms confused, but what we'd like to do is show you the plans for the streetlights, for the LED streetlights throughout the city, show you what the intentions are, ask you, this would be a time where you, if you know, like I know in the second ward, there's no streetlights on Sanford Street from where Windy Ridge goes to the city line. There could be a couple there, so I'll make that proposal. I also think there's a real dead, dark spot on at the Sanford Street playground in the far back corner by where the bike path meets the playground. And so anyway, those are things, if you know of a part of your neighborhood that is either underlit and you'd like to make a suggestion, we built into the budget a 10% overestimate so that we could afford such things if we needed. Now would be the time to say, hey, on this street light corner, there's always needed a light and there isn't one. We'll also review things like the intensity of the light. They're going to make recommendations to us so that you know that on a normal street light, you don't want them to be really, really bright, but in a dangerous parking lot that always seems to have some more issues, you might have brighter light. So those are the things we'd like to review. We need you to all respond, please, of when your availability is so we can plan this and move forward. And that is it.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Reed?
I got nothing.
Just kidding, yeah.
So what you were talking about with the LED lights, so I'm assuming that it's all gonna be dark sky lighting?
All of it, yes.
Okay.
Yep, they'll actually review the different heads, like here in the community, we're gonna have more ornamental that match the current lights, but that also has a black, not black, but a cover so that no light is going up.
Right.
And then, the other, out in the neighborhoods, more in the neighborhoods, it's just a normal Cobra, I think they call it, Cobra style lighting, and that will also be night, they call it dark sky.
Right.
Yes, so that's all that is being considered.
for families. And we did post this on our city website, but in case anyone hasn't seen it, I just want to throw out the resource, the Southern Adirondack Child Care Network. They are working really hard to communicate with the small child care providers and the large child care providers and keep an updated list of who's opening and when they're opening, and they provide free referrals. So if anybody, you know, is trying to figure out alternative plans, contact them. And also, there is money available for covering child care costs for essential workers if they meet requirements, and they're managing that as well. So that is on the city website, so you can find all that information.
Okay, great. About new business, Mr. Chairman.
I have none.
I have none.
Scott.
I have none.
Mr. Reed.
None.
Mr. Kevin. It's fine.
I have none.
Okay, great. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the resolution number 2 that we had with the hospital. I had gotten a call from, first I'll talk to Mark Dean, who was on the board of the hospital, and also I talked to Ray Agnew. And so the funding that came out in the second, I believe it was the second round, wasn't it, for hospitals from the federal government. It only went to what was considered rural hospitals. And the city of Glens Falls Hospital is considered urban, which makes no sense with a county of 63,000 people that were an urban center. So then Ray Agnew talked to me and said there's no rhyme or reason on why they call certain places urban and some of them they call rural. He said, for example, if you go over to Cambridge, New York, you go through a small little community before you get into town in Cambridge. It's called Coila.
Yeah.
Coila is an urban, it is registered as urban, and Cambridge is rural. And then if you go to Whitehall is considered rural, and Hewis Landing is urban. So, just to give you an example, it makes no sense whatsoever. Sad, do you have any comments on that?
The only thing, I think if there's been some clarification after seeing that, not from you, Mayor, but talking to hospital officials, this was not a grant. The $21 million is a loan to the Glens Falls Hospital at 10% interest.
But the second, we didn't get nothing in the second
No,
round.
that's true. So that money will be utilized as a reserve in the event that something happens. But I think that the concept of what you're offering is really additional funds that need to be found to support the Glens Falls Hospital, because this money, the hospital got a number of calls from some of the vendors. Hey, you got $21 million now, you can pay us.
Well, that's how it looks.
Right.
So that's the misimpression that came out. It's not a grant, it's a loan. But that should not stop this council that's always been supportive of the hospital to further and maybe adjust that resolution just a little bit going forward, Mayor. It's a great idea, and the hospital is very supportive of the Common Council and you, Mayor, for personally advocating for Glens Falls Hospital. That is a major impact in employment, as well as other economics, but most importantly from the healthcare for our region in the area. So.
I thought that was fascinating, so I thought I'd mention that. I have nothing else at this point, as we daily are trying to get more guidance on about reopening and so on. So I will tell you that we're going to bring the employees back. Most of the employees in City Hall have been working on a split shifts, is the best way to say it. Some of them are working 2 days a week, some of them are working 3 days a week, but we're going to bring them back on May 1st if we get the go-ahead, June 1st when we get the go-ahead from the county, and I think the county is on board with what we're talking about doing. So we'll get everybody back. We're going to have some changes in here. If you're looking down in the lobby, you'll see that there's a desk down there, and we'll have someone sitting at the desk. You will have to sign an affidavit that you're not sick, sign an affidavit that you're, you haven't been around someone that's been sick. We'll be taking temperatures of the employees. So there's a lot of changes, and we've been working on that. We've Judy White's been working on it along with Chief Schrammel, so, we're gonna try to comply, so it's, gonna be different around here, and we're not gonna open up to the public for a while, but we wanna bring our employees back, get them acclimated about what we gotta do. Bob Curtis will tell you that his office has been backing up on, death certificates and birth certificates, and, he gets emails and phone calls all day long, so, we would wanna bring the staffs back and try, before we open up, City Hall, to get the backlog of what's been piling up, to, get that knocked down a little bit, so that's what we're gonna be doing here, starting on June 1st. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss? Okay, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I forgot, I was gonna ask Ed about. Hey Ed, before we
Yes.
go,
Sure.
can you talk a little bit about where we are with the DRI?
Yes, so the ESD is the one of the many agencies that the governor works very closely with, and it